Welcome to Pick Me Up, I'm Scared, the podcast.
I'm your host, Madeline.
And I'm your co-host, Kenna.
Okay, Kenna, today I wanted to ask you, do you ever watch 90 Day Fiancé?
No, but I get all the play-by-play from you. I have a hard time watching reality TV. It generally stresses me out really hard. It makes me embarrassed. I cringe. The only shows lately that I have been able, reality shows that I've been able to do is RuPaul's Drag Race and sometimes Jersey Shore.
Oh, okay. I like those. Admirable choices. I only watch reality TV if it makes me cringe.
You're the opposite.
Yeah. I want to feel good about my life, so I want to watch other people make bad decisions so that I can be like, oh, thank God I'm doing all right,
I just watch Jersey Shore and I'm always just like, you guys need to make your beds. And I look at my bed, it's all made. I'm all, yeah, I'm doing good.
Yeah. I mean, I feel the opposite with Jersey Shore because Snooki's outfits are just so good.
They're so good.
So I feel like a failure in comparison to Snooki.
Yeah, they also go out to these clubs with names that are really funny, like Karma.
Yeah, and then they dance. I've never danced at a club that intensely ever in my life.
I have never danced in a club that intensely in a tube dress, and I want to before I die.
Yeah, they do handstands and stuff against the wall, and they're freak dancing the wall in their hands. You're like, this is so I feel bad about myself when I watch Jersey Shore.
Yeah, I feel bad and good.
Oh, I like that. Okay, well, you know what 90 Day Fiancé is, obviously.
I believe it's the one where people have an internet relationship and someone is in America and someone is in a different country and then they're going to meet IRL to figure out if they want to get married.
Yeah. So basically it's a show where people from the United States are dating someone internationally who does live in another country, yes. And it can be someone they met online, but sometimes it's just people they met on vacation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and sometimes they met in vacation in that person's country. Sometimes they both met on vacation in a totally different place. And they already want that person to move to the U.S. when the show starts.
Oh.
But the best way to do that is to get this thing we have here called a K-1 visa, which is a 90-day visa granted to a fiancé. But by the end of that 90 days, they have to get married or the fiancé has to leave the country.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's a little more further along in the relationship by this point when they bring them over. And most of these people have only spent 1 to 2 weeks together at a time at the most. So you can imagine getting thrust into living together full time for 3 months with someone you only know through FaceTime. Not only, but mostly know through FaceTime. That's a huge shock to most people, right? And it obviously makes for amazing television because of that. And it's a train wreck. It's a train wreck, completely. You watch these people, they're fighting for love. They're making terrible decisions. They are definitely not very compatible. And you just sit there and you watch and you're like, wow, my life might be a mess, but I would never do this. Why do they think this is going to work? And the weirdest thing that I've learned recently is that their relationships actually do statistically tend to work. And by that, I mean they work better than the national average for marriages in the U.S.
Interesting.
Yeah, I would not have guessed this while watching the show, but I looked, and there have been 46 couples featured on the main show because there's all the spinoffs. So just doing the main show, there's 18 spinoffs.
Oh, wow.
And out of them, 31 are married and 15 broke up. So that's a 32% split rate, which compared to the national average divorce rate of 41%.
Wow.
They're doing well.
Wow. Wait, so is divorce less than it used to be?
Yeah, divorce is going down.
Interesting.
Yeah, it depends on how you calculate it, but it's between 41 to 50%.
Interesting. I wonder, this is just purely anecdotally, if it's because people just live together now before they actually get married.
Well, actually, if you live with somebody before you get married for more than 2 years, it increases your chance of getting divorced.
Whoa.
Yeah, I would not have thought that. It would have thought the opposite because you already know each other's shit. You're like, yeah, this is working. We'll get married. But usually I think what more is you live together and you're like, I want to kill you. What if we get married?
Oh my God.
Right, to fix it.
Oh.
Yeah. Right?
Okay.
They're like, maybe the not being married is the problem.
Yeah, that red flag.
Yeah.
Also with having children to fix a relationship.
You should never do these things to fix a relationship.
Don't
No.
do it.
Yeah, so like this show, whatever's happening here, it's working for these couples more than just any other normal person you'd run into on the street on a relationship.
Oh.
Yeah. And it kind of made me realize that maybe I actually don't know what happens out in the world in other people's relationships. And this all led me to today's episode topic, which is dating. I want to do a light one. We've done some intense ones. I thought I'd do a light one. So we've done an episode in the past about why straight men are all statistically most attracted to teenagers. And that episode is called All of Our Grandpas Are Creeps, if you want to give it a listen.
And they are.
They're creeps, yeah. But this episode is going to just be a little more broad and just cover dating in general, ranging from the history of it to the psychology of it and how it kind of fits in with our world today. Okay, so to start us off, I thought we'd do like a little pop-up quiz about dating statistics.
Ooh.
So, Kenna, if this sounds okay with you, I'm going to ask you some questions, and then you can just take a guess at what the right answer might be.
Oh, okay.
Okay, you ready?
Yes.
Okay, I feel like you're really good at these.
I'm flipping my hair. I'm like, I'm kind of good at trivia.
I think you're
My
pretty
mom
good.
says I could be on Jeopardy.
I think you could, yeah. You
I
have
don't
a good
think so.
memory.
I'm good memory with trivia. I don't remember what happened from kindergarten through college. Total blur.
I think that's a trauma response. Which is okay. This is a safe space for trauma responses. All right, so I'm going to start off with the first one. Okay, how long do you think it takes to find out if you're compatible with someone you've just met?
How long it takes? I'm going to say a few days.
Okay, that is actually incorrect.
Oh.
The answer is 4 minutes.
Wow.
Right? Yeah. Like, it won't tell you long-term compatibility, but it will tell you if you click with someone.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I thought that was interesting. It's really short. Like, I've been with my boyfriend for 6.5 years, and I knew we were compatible after maybe an hour of talking to him.
Yeah, I feel like I felt that way before. Like,
Yeah.
where, I've definitely been out with someone and be like, wow, okay, I feel like I've known you forever.
Right, and I feel like the hour kind of makes sense with him if 4 minutes is the average, because my boyfriend's really shy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't talk much, but most people, 4 minutes, very short. Okay, so now we're going to do the second one. Out of married people, what is the average age they first met their spouse? Not when they got married, when they first met the person they were going to marry.
25.
Okay, it's 28. You were close.
Wow.
Yeah, it's 28. The 28 made sense to me because your brain has developed and matured, but you're still going out and, like, meeting people and having fun. And then, like, figure you date for 2 years and you're like, oh, what are we doing? And we're 30. We are adults. We could settle down. This is marriage age. You know, that kind of made sense to me, 28.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so cool when your brain is developed. You're like, wow.
I know, right? You're making good decisions. Yeah.
You're like, and also just experience is cool. Like, you really, nothing can replace experience for certain things.
No, that's totally true. Yeah. Okay, so then the third question I have on our trivia quiz is how many relationships did most married people have before they settled down with their spouse?
8.
It is 5 to 6.
Wow.
Yeah, so pretty close. I thought it felt low. So I actually had 3 boyfriends in high school, and then I had 5 boyfriends after. So I had 8 before entering what I now think my long-term relationship, which is basically a marriage, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I feel like I've had 6.
Yeah,
since
so 5
high
to 6.
school.
Yeah. So that is pretty average. So that makes sense to me. All right, and then the next one is, what % of couples together today do you think met through a dating app or website?
50%.
It is 8%. It is
Whoa.
8%. Is that low?
Wow. Yes, okay, because I know a lot of people who have met, like, their significant others, like, on a dating site.
Yeah, I met my boyfriend on Tinder.
Yeah, like, I remember, I had an ex and his sister met, like, the love of her life through OkCupid.
Wow.
Back when OkCupid was, like, the Wild West.
Yeah, I mean, I always kind of thought OkCupid was cool. I never used it, but I, like, appreciated it a lot.
Yeah, I think she, like, she's like, I made a spreadsheet, I went, like, blah, blah, she, like, went all out on the OkCupid, and it worked for her.
Wow, I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so this kind of goes along with it, the next one. What % of adults in the U.S. do you think use dating apps?
50%.
12%. Damn
it!
I know. It's just the people we know.
I'm in a bubble. Help.
Okay, there's 10 questions, so we're halfway through them. I'm sorry. I thought these were all really interesting. Okay. So then what percent of women in particular, just women, say they are not actively dating? Off the market women in the U.S.
25%?
It is 60%.
Wow.
Yes. Either because they're in a relationship or they're just over it.
Oh, I think I just didn't think about married people or people in a relationship.
Yes. Okay, well, this brings me to my next one, which is what state has the most single people, the most hotties ready to mingle, live in?
Single people. Hawaii?
Louisiana.
Huh.
So if you were single, 55.7% of Louisiana is single too.
Wow.
You can just go down there, you can date, you can
knock boots in the boot state.
You can
I was trying to think of something.
It's good. You can get daiquiris with the future love of your life there.
Wow.
Right. Okay. We're almost done. Sorry. The 8th one is, what percent of relationships fail within the first year?
30%?
70%.
Wow.
Yes. So if you made it through the first year, you're doing great. You're on the path to greatness.
Wow.
What percent of straight women want to date men with tattoos?
30%.
64%.
Okay, I'm like, wow, I am out of touch. This is like,
you're usually so good at these.
I think it's because I have just always been a weirdo and I don't understand regular society.
Well, what I'm learning from this is if you were a single man, you should get a fuck ton of tattoos and move to Louisiana. I think that's the way to do it. That's what you want. Especially if you're 28, it's time. It is time for you to get tattoos, move to Louisiana, and start dating. And then just like as fast as possible, 4-minute intervals with as many women as you can.
Yes. Speed dating. Do speed dating in Louisiana.
Yeah. So, okay, then the last question actually kind of relates, and it is, where do you think that most couples meet? How do you think most couples meet?
Bar?
It is through friends.
Oh.
Yes, it is 39% through friends.
That actually makes sense anecdotally.
It does, right?
Just like in my own life. Same with like jobs.
Yeah.
I feel like the best way to get a job is through a buddy.
Oh, yeah. I thought you were going to go the other way, where it's also easy to meet people to date at your job.
Yeah. I think I was reading somewhere, like, the best way to get a job is not through a close friend, but a friend of a friend.
That, I have had that experience before. That's how I've gotten jobs before, yeah.
Yeah. I feel like it's always, like, friends of friends.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay, so the number one way to find a mate, that sounded creepy, I don't know how you say it without being creepy, it is through friends. But next up is at work, actually.
Huh.
And then after that, it would be meeting at like bars or public places. And then last is dating sites, and then speed dating. Speed dating's 1%.
What about the library?
I think that's a public space. So like bar and library on equal footing. Yeah.
Okay.
Good to know. So were any of these more surprising to you than others?
I think just the amount of people that use dating apps, I thought it would be way more.
Well, that's really interesting. I think we'll get into it, but I think the main thing is that younger people use them, but older people are still like, I don't know.
Well, my mom's like best friend, who is like, I think now in her 60s, like met her husband when she was in her late 40s, 50s, like on Match.com.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love it. I love.
Yeah, that seems like Match.com seems like for the elders.
The mature dater. I like that. And they have that accent. It's not British. I don't know what it is. What is that accent? The mature dater. Yeah, so, okay, dating is, like, pretty interesting because now, obviously, we think of, like, online dating. We think of, like, apps. But back in the 1800s, people didn't really date like we think of it today. So I kind of have, like, a history of dating here. So, we had courtship, right?
I feel like I always think about, like Jane Eyre. Or like Jane Austen books, or, where it's like, and they walked around the garden together.
Yeah.
And they briefly touched hands.
Yes, exactly. Just oozing with sexuality, that brief finger touch. Ooh.
She dropped her white lace glove,
Ugh.
and he gently picked it up and
hot.
placed it back into her palm.
Yeah, that is erotic. So yeah, we had courtship, and it was more private and less emotional, and this was the beginning of the 1800s. And usually men would meet with women in the presence of their parents at their homes, like you were talking about. Like, you'd walk around the courtyard, or you'd like sit in the parlor. And then, like, the family together would kind of pick whomever was the most suitable, like, suitor for marriage based on financial and social status. And then when a man and a woman started seeing each other exclusively after that, their activities together all took place either in public or under the watchful eye of the family or community at a social gathering. Although some parents would intentionally leave the parlor to permit a little light fooling around to happen. But, like, in a creepy way. Like, try her out. Yeah, really creepy. Yeah. People didn't really go on dates as we think of them now. And obviously it was all very hetero. But there were some exceptions. Like, there was this Marxist feminist, Victoria Woodhull, who called marriage sexual slavery and described herself as a free lover. But this definitely wasn't the norm at the time.
Yeah, same with Mary Wollstonecraft.
Oh, yeah.
Mother to Mary Shelley.
Oh.
Of Frankenstein. But she was, like, at her time, she's like, I'm not getting married. Like, had children out of wedlock. Like, she was, like, a very, like, feminist, like, being like, I am not doing that.
Love that.
Which is, like, extremely, extremely rare.
Yeah, super rare. So we had a few people who were like, nah, fuck that. But for the most part, everyone was like, oh, this is how it goes. And then by, like, the early 1900s, average couples started to make a little progress, and they began to bring the idea of affection into courtship rituals. So, like, oh, what if we actually liked each other? And then they also started to kind of go together, like, on dates in public, unsupervised, still with the intention of, like, courting for marriage, but also with just a little bit more fun, like, thrown in. And the term dating came along because girls were filling up the dates on their calendars with these kinds of outings with multiple suitors. So yeah, like, around 1900, actually a guy wrote into a local newspaper, and he was, like, complaining because he liked this girl, and he's like, well, every date on her calendar is filled up some other man. She's just out there dating her calendar all up. And that's kind of where it came from.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the dates would usually have, like, a young man going to a young woman's family home, being welcomed into their parlor, and this is kind of that gentleman caller thing we think of, and then they would go out. And by the 1920s, this kind of, like, calling on at the home, that started to become a thing of the past, and dates really took off. So men were tasked with paying, and the dates became progressively less structured and regimented. However, at this time, women were also starting to enter the workforce, and they were being paid these, like, really low wages. Because usually the employers were like, well, you're not supporting yourself. You're just, like, bringing home extra money to your father and brothers or something like that, which wasn't actually the case. A lot of these women were supporting themselves, and they were living on their own or in, like, housing with other women, like boarding with other women. So in order to be able to, like, afford to live, they would start taking advantage of the expectation that men should pay for dates. And they would just go on dates with, like, a different man every night just to be able to afford dinner, since they could seldom afford, like, groceries or proper food on their own. So as a result, these kind of low-paid girls with jobs like shopkeepers and stenographers started to get called charity girls. And they got a reputation for having loose morals since they dated a lot, but also for being, like, bad for business for actual sex workers, who started to complain that these charity girls were taking away their clients, since they would basically have sex at the end of the date just in exchange for a meal, and they were giving it away for free, giving it away for charity, which I thought was really interesting. It, like, totally upset the whole sex work industry. And as time went along, marriage became less and less of, like, the main stated goal of dating, and people just started to, like, date to have fun. Obviously, people still liked each other after several dates, and then they might, like, pursue an exclusive relationship, and this kind of pushed the idea that maybe people ought to be able to fall in love before getting married. Because up until this, like, you would get married, and then, like, the expectation would just be you'll grow to love each other. Like, you don't need to love each other now. That'll come. So then by, like, the 1950s, exclusive dating was marked with the phrase going steady, right, which we've all heard. And dating became more of, like, just a youth experience, kind of stripped away from parental expectations. And also the public started to talk about, like, sex stuff for the first time.
Ooh.
Yeah, because sex had previously been, like, as completely desexualized as possible and was viewed as, like, a union with God to make a child. Really creepy, something really creepy. Although in the 1800s, I did find this really bizarre fact that parents would let potential husbands get a trial run with their daughters in a bed. They were allowed to sleep in the bed next to each other as long as they stopped short of having full-blown sex. And to make sure this didn't happen, they were sewn into cloth sacks to prevent intercourse.
Huh.
Isn't this wild?
Sounds cool.
Yeah. So whatever. But now it's the 1950s and teenagers are just making out with each other in the backs of cars. And then next thing you know, boom, it's the 60s and we got like the free love movement, an era of sexual liberation, and all that kind of coalesced into the system of dating that we have today. So we have hookup culture, obviously. We've also got casual dating, which is something just like above hookup culture, like maybe you actually go on dates, but below like serious relationships. And then we have like serious relationships, which we think of as potentially dating for marriage or dating for a long-term companion. So, we kind of mentioned this, and the thing that's like most unique, I think, about our era is like dating apps and the presence of like an online kind of option for dating.
Mm-hmm.
So dating apps are obviously super popular with millennials and Gen Z. Remember how you thought like everybody was using them?
Yeah.
That's because like everybody in our age is.
Oh.
Yeah. So 72% of millennials have used dating apps. And as of 2019, more than 50 million people use Tinder alone. And users on average spend 90 minutes a day online dating.
Whoa.
Yeah. However, Hinge reports that less than 1 in 500 swipes leads to a phone number exchange. So it's not super effective.
It's like quantity over quality.
Yeah. So, why are we doing it? And I can speak from personal experience is that it's fun.
For you, it's fun.
Yeah, it's fun. It's cute. You get to set up your little profile. You get to choose your pictures. You get to imagine how you're being perceived by potential hotties. And then it's like more fun actually swiping through and looking for the hotties. It feels a bit like online shopping, only it's free. And there's a casino-style game element to it, right? You get a rush when you get a match, You're like, oh.
I love that you think of it this way, because for me, it's the opposite.
Wait, what's it like for you?
It's depressing.
Oh, really?
I feel like I'm shopping for dudes.
Yeah, that's fun. I feel like I'm shopping for dudes.
No, I don't
Fun.
like it. I'm like, I'm just judging you off this photo and some of the weird shit you say, but maybe you're not. Like, I'm just like, and then I think about how, that it just makes me spiral into society is bad, and then it makes me depressed, and I set down my phone.
Okay, well, statistically, I would be the anomaly and you would be more the norm, it turns out. So, yeah, as it checks out, everything that I like about online dating, it checks out according to science. These apps do indeed do this thing called gamification, where they gamify relationships. So according to Psychology Today, dating apps became addictive through neurochemical changes in our bodies. So Dr. Lauren Syro explains that playing games on your phone releases endorphins, your body's endogenous, your body's natural painkiller, basically. And this can reduce your anxiety levels, which feels great, and it can even spark the feeling of being high. And matching someone on a dating app does the exact same thing. Like, you feel like you've won something. Mm-hmm. So Tinder co-founder Jonathan Badeen, God, the names are so hard for me. I'm so sorry. But he says, Johnny boy here, Tinder Johnny, says that having unpredictable yet frequent rewards is the best way to motivate someone to keep moving forward. So when these rewards are implemented, you kind of get into this feedback loop of neurological adrenaline and dopamine releases. Then the anticipation of those releases comes in, and then you're just like on in this like circle where you're like getting the releases, anticipating the releases, getting the releases, and on and on and on, and you get addicted to it. And that addiction can unfortunately lead to burnout, which makes you feel lonely and isolated, kind of like what you were talking about. And people with high levels of loneliness and social anxiety already have a higher correlated preference for online social interactions in general, which means that for people who prefer online dating as a way to deal with like their own feelings of loneliness or social anxiety, using these apps can actually backfire and create more loneliness and social anxiety. Mm-hmm. And men are 97% more likely to feel addicted to dating than women, but women are 54% more likely to feel burnt out by it.
Yeah, I feel like that might make sense.
Yeah.
For me, I prefer the friend of a friend approach through Instagram.
Oh yeah, some people are Instagram people. I've learned this. Some people they'll be like, "Oh, I'm single. I'm just gonna look through my DMs," and I'm like, literally, all of my DMs are like a man screaming at me about a political opinion I don't care about, and then girls being like, "Look how cute this dress is, hi," and I'm like, "Oh, cute," but none of that helps me date.
Yeah, I just have a different way, I guess.
Yeah. Well, okay. Remember also how I said I liked it because it felt like shopping? Mm-hmm. it turns out that there's a basis for that too, and it's called relation shopping. It's a pretty good name. Relation shopping. But the flip side is that we end up kind of objectifying and dehumanizing the people we're swiping on, right? Because if we're just shopping, we've made these people into goods to be consumed and discarded, which could also potentially affect our treatment of them.
Yeah, that's how I feel. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, but it's like not all bad on the apps. Like dating app users are more likely to make varied and diverse connections since they're dating outside of their usual social circles. Some economists have even argued that online dating is a great tool for integrating societies and leads to more interracial relationships from like a mathematical perspective, which is accurate. And additionally, for the gay community, online dating is a safe and easy way to meet people without having to deal with a homophobic society around you. So a full 30% of gay marriages and 70% of gay relationships come from online dating.
Ew.
I know, right? So when I was single, I loved dating apps. But also, I'm bisexual, which could explain why I like them so much more than my straight friends who are women who are on them. They seem to get depressed by the apps, where I found it fun and easy, and even when I was matching with men, I still enjoyed it. In fact, 55% of the LGBTQ community uses online dating, compared to just 28% of straight adults. So online dating is just kind of more gay, which is cool.
Cool.
And then there are some dating app tricks also that are supposed to like help you get engagement on the apps, which I thought were really interesting. So I thought I'd go over them. And this probably plays into it too. Like if you instinctively know the tricks, you're going to have a more positive experience, right? Because we all know, like you've seen like people with terrible profiles, like the men with the fish.
Like they're holding up a big fish.
Yeah, like a fish they killed. Yeah. And you're like, why?
Or they're holding a baby for some reason.
Yeah, someone else's baby. Yeah.
Or a dog.
You know, the dog actually is statistically good for you.
That's true.
Yeah, the dog. But no, totally. We see the accounts and we're like, what? Or it's like, this is bad light. I can't tell. Or there's like, it's 3 of you. Who am I looking at, right? So if you're a woman, if you want to choose like the best photo, you should be making direct eye contact in the photo and doing what researchers call a flirty look to get more matches. But if you're a man, you need to be looking away from the camera and you should not be smiling or looking flirty at all. And that's how you get the most matches. And then people with photos of them doing something interesting, like posing with an animal, but I'm guessing alive, but the research didn't specify, but I think alive animals only.
Maybe taxidermy.
Maybe, okay. Or traveling in an interesting location. Those people are more likely to get longer conversations and more engagement from their matches. But on the flip side, people who have photos in bed, taken outdoors, having fun with their friends, or consuming alcohol are less likely to have conversations with their matches. Yeah.
Okay, this reminds me of that book, The Game.
This is the game. This is the online dating game.
So,
there are rules we must follow.
For those who don't know, The Game is this book written in the 90s, like right before everybody had like a camera phone.
Yes,
like people had cell phones, but not quite camera phones, or if they did, they were shitty. So like and this book is about pickup artists.
Right.
And it's terrible, but it's hilarious. It is. And so one of the things they do to say to pick up, like, and they're talking about like straight men with women. Yeah. With women is to print out all of the photo, be like, oh, I just got my photos developed. And so these are like actual photographs you pick up from like the 1 hour photo. And it's supposed to be you on vacation with animals, with celebrities.
What? It's all the things. It's all the things you're not supposed to do now.
It's all the things you're not supposed to do. But they were like, yes, this works. I'm like, okay, my whole thing with this book is I think that like they just harass so many like women that it's just a numbers game.
It's a numbers game. I think that's dating. It's a numbers game. Yeah, so all in all, conversations are better if your first message is shorter, right? Which also plays into the numbers game thing. You can talk to more people. And recipients only respond to like 30% of men's messages or 45% of women's messages on average anyway. And after a conversation, though, 51% of people have face-to-face matches within 1 month of talking. So I think you're right. It's just like you just got to talk to a ton of people. But while people with social anxiety tend to prefer online dating, overall, the people in the dating apps tend to be more social on average and have higher self-esteem and lower dating anxiety than the general public, which I thought was interesting. Which just kind of means it's appealing to lots of people for different reasons. And some of the most popular reasons are like moving to a new city, working long hours, or just wanting to meet people like outside your normal friend group. And while the game element, not to be confused with the game, the book, while the game element of dating online it's like a new thing to contend with. It's basically just a digital form of online matchmaking, right? Especially when you get into apps and websites that rely on more like personality traits and quizzes like OkCupid did. OkCupid, you would like take a full personality quiz.
Yeah, that was long.
Yeah, and they do like matching. So like matchmakers have existed obviously for centuries and are even described in the Bible. And they usually worked for like pay or barter, or like, you know, the gifting kind of thing that happened in economies. And they would help parents find potential partners for their children. So matchmakers still exist today, but it's like a far more limited scope than in the past, obviously. And sometimes we become de facto matchmakers in our own lives, right? So like right now, I have so many hot, smart, fun, funny friends who are single and dating. And I'm constantly like doing the friend math to see if any of them will just date each other. You know? So, like, we all kind of have this, like, matchmaking instinct that's not too far off from, like, the service that online dating is providing.
Yeah, I have definitely been a successful matchmaker.
Oh, I love that. I've tried, but I failed. As media developed, though, we also, like, moved into things from matchmakers. Do you remember, like, classified ads for dating?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so this would be, like, the song If You Like Pina Coladas.
If you like pina coladas. Yeah, that song is great.
Yeah, and what's it about, right?
It's about, this guy who's writing a personal ad, and he's describing like what he loves, and it's pina coladas and getting caught in the rain. And then someone responds to the ad and is like, I love the same things, let's meet up. And then they finally meet up, and it turns out it's already his lady.
Yes, because they were both trying to cheat on each other.
And then they ended up cheating on each other with each other.
Yeah, but that was a newspaper ad. That whole song's about a newspaper ad, right? So that was pretty common when we were growing up. People put ads in newspapers. And then also there was like computer dating started in like maybe the 70s on a really small scale. It was like super complicated. The computers were huge, and they were like inside of like colleges and took up whole rooms, and students could go in and like fill out these like punch card questionnaires, and they would try to match them with other people on campus. And then do you remember video dating?
I feel like I saw some like in movies. Like where people would like make video. I think like how I was like, oh, this is a thing, was by like watching like Kids in the Hall.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So basically what they would do is you would like sign up for a service, and you would send photos of yourself to them. And then also you would make a VHS like video of yourself being like, hey, what's up? My name is Bradley. I like long walks on the beach and tofu, or whatever the fuck. And then when you were in the service, you could look through the photos and you could be like, oh, Bradley looks cute. And then they would send you his video. And then you could be like, I'm watching the videos to see who I like. And then if you wanted to meet somebody, they would like facilitate you actually talking to each other.
Wow, so much work.
I know, it was a lot of work, right? And that was pretty much the same thing as like Tinder, just better technology now, obviously. Yeah. And then there were also the call-in telephone lines where you could just talk to other random singles. Like Singles Connect. I don't know if you remember these.
I just remember them, like the commercials for like singles in your area.
Oh, I think those were like sexy calls.
Oh.
Yeah. There were two different kinds. There were like phone sex operators, but then there were also just like literally people, like random people.
Oh, gotcha. Because in my mind as a child, I'm like, wow, people can just talk to each other.
Well, that did exist too. Yeah. So I used to kind of prank call one as a kid. I wouldn't be like mean or like play pranks. I would just like listen. Because I was really, I was a weird child. Yeah, I just wanted to know. And they'd be like chat rooms, but on the phone, which is like a bunch of people talking. And then if you wanted, you could have like a private room set up for just you and somebody else.
Ooh.
So whatever. I guess the point is looking for love is nothing new. But there is like a science behind it. And when it comes to dating, it's true that like some people are unfortunately just better at dating than others. And there can be a few reasons for that. And one is obviously perceived attractiveness to others, right? So Kenna, let's say you're at a bar and someone comes up to you and they sit down next to you and they ask if they can buy you a drink. Is that an acceptable intro to talk to someone, or is that creepy behavior?
I think it depends. Generally, I'm just like, yeah, I'll take your drink, and then I leave.
Oh, okay. So I would say that, like, it kind of depends on how hot you think the person is, right? What if it's the hottest person you've ever seen in your life and they do that? You're going to be a lot more receptive to it, right?
Maybe, yeah. Maybe to me, I'm just like, yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Well, I think, like, the thing is, like, hotness is super fucking relative.
It's so relative.
So you never know. You're like, am I hot enough to pull this off? Who knows? Like, you know, things that make someone hot to me would be like, oh, you have good style, you're funny, we have good banter, like, we're kind of, like, sassy, you're confident.
Yeah, before someone bought me a drink, I would prefer them be like, oh, hey, what's up? I like your shoes or something, or like, what's up?
Yeah, and then, like, you know, I don't know, just like, I feel like hot energy, like your energy has so much to do with like how you're going to be received. But we all like different things, and there are different factors that influence our general like ideas of attractiveness, right? Like, I like it when people are sassy and mean to me, because that's fun, because I can be sassy and mean back. I don't think you would like that. That would not be hot to you.
I fucking hate it.
You would hate that. Right, so
I need very nice.
Very nice, yeah. So there's a few things that like actually influence in our brains what we perceive as being attractive. So the first one is exposure. Just like, the more you're around someone, the more likely you are to be attracted to them. Like, people literally grow on you. I mean, not literally. They figuratively grow on you. And researchers call this the proximity principle. So over 50 years of scientific research has found that when you see people frequently, you're more likely to be attracted to them, which explains all of those workplace romances that develop. Oh. Right? And the second is health, which sounds really creepy and eugenicsy to me. Yeah, I don't like this one. So scientists have shown, though, that, yeah, some people are more likely to be attracted to people who appear healthy, whatever that means. And one way this manifests is in the quality of, like, your skin, which, as somebody with bad skin, this is offensive to me. But the healthier someone's skin appears, the more attractive they're likely to be ranked. But the problem with this is, like, how we perceive healthy is relative, too. So, for example, we know that it's more dangerous to be, like, medically underweight than it is to fall into, like, the weird made-up categories of overweight, which I'm saying in air quotes, but you can't see it, that doctors use, right? So people we call overweight, according to like weird arbitrary scales doctors made up with the help of insurance companies or whatever, they in fact tend to live longer than people who are underweight or of average weight, suggesting the whole scale for how we look at weight is just fucked up and we need to throw the whole thing away. But if you didn't know that this was like the reality and you just consumed media propaganda, which is constantly telling us to be as thin as possible, like, you might wrongfully assume that thin people are healthier, which might affect your subconscious attraction to them. So one study found that people with access to the internet, for example, view thin faces as more attractive, while people without internet access tend to prefer faces with more weight on them. Yeah. So this brings us to the third factor, which is like the influence of society around us. Like, our friends, family, and the media all help us determine who we find attractive. And it's pretty common for people to find partners who in some way remind them of their parents. Ooh. Yeah. It's pretty weird. And that's because what you grow up with is like what's normalized to you, and it just looks right in your head. So for example, my dad has a missing tooth, and when I see people with missing teeth, I tend to be drawn to them because it's familiar to me and it just looks right. And my current boyfriend of 6.5 years is not only missing a tooth, but missing a tooth in the same spot as my dad.
Whoa.
Yeah, which was pretty gnarly for me to realize. I was like, oh, that's weird. And it felt creepy, but also it's just kind of what we're accustomed to. And that actually, it turns out, isn't that uncommon. Studies find that straight women's preferences for an ideal partner, somatype it's called, they do kind of correlate a little bit with their father's somatype, especially if you had a positive relationship with your dad during childhood, which I did. For gay men, the same is true regardless of the quality of the relationship. The draw isn't necessarily strong enough on its own to like dictate the likelihood of you actually choosing someone as your mate, but it does contribute to a slight preference in attractiveness perception. Yeah, and society also influences our attraction to other people via media, which is probably the most obvious one of all, right? The media tells us what attractive is, and we're more likely to find people attractive if they match that beauty standard we've been taught our whole lives. So beauty standards vary from culture to culture, which explains why most beautiful person on society will look completely different than the most beautiful person in a completely different society, right? Like, even within smaller subsets of communities, like alternative subculture or queer culture, we see vacillations in our interpretation of beauty. Someone with a bright red mohawk might not be attractive to the average person, but might be extremely attractive to someone who grew up going to punk shows and surrounded by punk culture. Or similarly, like a woman who presents in an androgynous or masculine way might not be attractive to like a heterosexual man, but might be extremely attractive in queer spaces. Our beauty standards are different based on the media we consume and the communities we participate in. And just the people we see around us every day, they play a part in this too. Scientists have actually found that while unique facial features can often be seen as attractive, on the flip side, very statistically average and simple faces are viewed as attractive too. So, like, if you took all of these all these facial features of, like, a bunch of people around you that you see every day, and then you were to average them, that person would look good to you. Yeah. And it's just, like, a combination of the things reflected back to us in our society at large, and we like that. It's comforting. And a fourth factor in determining hotness is also just people's personalities, which we kind of talked about. Like, Kenna, have you ever dated somebody you thought was so hot and cool, and then your friends are like, oh my God, show me, and you go to find a picture, and then you're like, oh my God, none of these photos are doing them justice, and your friends just, like, don't get it?
Yes.
Right? Yes. This is
And then they make fun of me.
they're like, this guy's ugly. And you're like, you don't get it. No, you don't get it. Right? Well, yeah, this is because it turns out that people's personalities influence their hotness like a lot. And it's really hard to tell how hot somebody is just from a photo, actually. So in one 2007 study, researchers found that people who were classified as kind were perceived as more attractive to others.
That makes sense to me because I feel like my mom would talk about my aunt and she's like, she's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. Like, she's just so amazing. She's so kind. And then she introduced her to their friends and they're like, I thought the woman you were going to introduce me to would look like a supermodel, but she just looked totally normal. The way you described her, she was a supermodel. And my mom just realized, oh, I just think she's beautiful. Like, she looks beautiful to me because she's so kind.
Right. So this is a thing. Your mom is on the statistical average with that one. And yeah, that is why if you just look at somebody, you're not going to get a sense of like how hot they actually are. Some people will have like a swagger to them or a hot energy. And like, just like you said, some people will be so nice. Whatever it is, that personality will do the trick. And that doesn't always come through in photos. And on the flip side, some people might look hot to you, but when you meet them in person, the vibe is off.
Oh, that has happened to me more than a few times.
Yeah, and then they stop being hot to you. You're like, I can't even see this person as hot.
Or like, yeah, you see them across the room and you're like, whoa, this person's so hot. Then you talk to them and you're like, ah!
Yeah, that happened to me. There was this kid I had such a crush on when I was like a teenager in my hometown. And I always, every time I saw him, I was like, that's the hottest person I've ever seen. And the first time I talked to him, I was just like, nope, it's wrong. The personality is not hot to me. It just didn't happen. And yeah, so this is like a pretty common thing I think we all intuitively know. But this is also why online dating profiles are not super effective, because usually users try to select the most attractive person in the photos to them, but this doesn't actually correlate to like IRL attraction levels. So people who are friendly and funny in person will be viewed as a lot more attractive than they would in photos, but you might not pick them just looking at a picture of them, right?
Yeah.
So additionally, researchers have found that people are much more attracted to people who have similar values and attitudes to them. Like, obviously, that makes sense. Like, I once tried to end a date mid-sentence when I found out a guy that I was, like, at a bar with was a libertarian. Literally 5 seconds, previously, he had been so hot to me. And the second I learned more about his political beliefs, he instantly lost all appeal. You know, I was just like, oh, God, this is not working for me. And 80% of people believe that opposites attract, but like data actually shows that this is statistically not true. We want to be around people who have similar values and ideas to us.
Yeah, I would agree to that.
Right. So like next, on top of all of this, there's hormones. This one gets really interesting. So according to a 2016 study, straight guys with high levels of testosterone are more attracted to women with traditionally feminine faces, which they describe with big eyes, high eyebrows, and small jaws.
Okay.
The more manly you are, the smaller your chick's jaw is. Another study from 2007 found that straight women who menstruate are more attracted to different types of men depending on where they are in their menstrual cycle. Oh. So like mid-cycle menstruating women would be more interested in men who are cocky and disrespectful to women. And then like their fertility also influenced women's desires to be in short-term flings with like asshole men, basically. Oh. Yeah, so this also potentially ties to like scars and their perceived hotness. Straight women tend to view scars as attractive on men for short-term relationships because they're linked to ideas of masculinity, like you've been through battle. Yeah. And then different points in their menstrual cycles, though, they'll look at somebody with scars and be like, "Ugh," and then instead they'll want like a long-term relationship with kinder and more conscientious men. So, yeah, it's no surprise that men without scars were ranked as looking more caring and better suited for long-term relationships than in one study.
Huh.
Yeah. So then the other weird thing is just this idea of like facial symmetry, which is kind of strange. Like people used to think this had something to do with that whole health idea, which is creepy. But then researchers were like, no, that's not real. We debunked that. So the biggest theory right now is just that symmetrical faces are easier for our brains to process and we're lazy. We're simple people and we want to look at things that are easy for us to understand quickly. But the problem with that is that you like might look at somebody and just not remember them at all because it's kind of boring. So on the opposite end of the spectrum, if you have an asymmetric face, it can be like a sign of authenticity and it's unique enough to make people more memorable.
Yeah, like what's his face? Luke Wilson?
Yes, and then also Meryl Streep is used as an example of this. Oh. Yeah. And another interesting thing is like this idea of security. So this is pretty fascinating. If you think your advances will be reciprocated, you tend to view somebody as more attractive.
I agree with it. I am not big on mixed signals.
Yeah, I feel like you and I have this in common, which is like we only fuck with someone if they're obsessed with us.
Yes.
Yes, this is us. And that's because we don't want to waste our time and effort on someone who might not be interested in the same way we are. So according to Harry Reid, a professor of psychology at the University of Rochester, people experience higher levels of sexual desire when they feel confident about a partner's interest and acceptance. So sexual desire for someone goes up when uncertainty is reduced. So if you know someone thinks you're hot, you're more likely to think they're hot too. But it gets a little complicated because you also don't want to come across as too eager because then you look desperate and then that brings down your overall perceived desirability.
Damn it.
Yeah, so people who play hard to get are perceived as being higher value, which affects their desirability positively. But then you have to find a balance between putting it out there and not making a fool of yourself. So this is why, while playing hard to get can be effective in early stages of dating, it actually isn't always the move unless you're like dealing with someone who's really used to that kind of behavior in their past and they like it.
Oh.
So that kind of brings us to like our last one here, which is familiarity. So this one kind of ties in with the idea of society influencing our perceptions of attractiveness and also with the idea of proximity and also with the idea of playing hard to get too. So basically, the more familiar something is to us, the more we will gravitate towards it. And this is why we tend to end up in relationships with the same kinds of people over and over again, even if we know they're bad for us. And sometimes they are in fact bad for us. Someone who grows up with an alcoholic parent, for example, might find the behavior of alcoholics comforting because it's familiar, according to psychiatrists. And this can also happen with people when they're like attracted to partners who show that same behavior, even if it was destructive to their home environment. Someone who grew up with an overly critical or judgmental parent, for example, might find comfort in a partner who treats them the same way their parent did, even if it's not great for them. And even though, for example, playing hard to get doesn't work with most people, if you happen to be a person who is used to a certain amount of neglect from those around you, it actually will work on you because it's what's familiar. So obviously nobody actually wants to be treated badly, but we do just, sometimes gravitate towards what we know because it makes the most sense to us, like instinctively. And familiarity isn't always bad. Sometimes it's just your type, which science says, yes, we do all tend to have. Like, my type would be masculine women or effeminate men or androgynous people in between, as long as they are sassy and can have the fun, play, fight, banter with me. So, like, Kenna, what's your type?
Oh, gosh. To me, nice. Nice. Also obsessed with me.
Yes.
And someone who likes to chill.
And you like arty people, I think.
Yeah.
You like people who are interested in art. And movies. You like people who are interested in film.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, a type isn't by default a bad thing. We all kind of have them. But that is also why we find ourselves in patterns of dating. And sometimes if we're in a bad pattern, it can be super hard to break it. Something different than your usual type might seem downright unattractive to you. But most experts agree it's actually worthwhile to date outside of your type consciously once in a while. Sticking too much to a type leads to prematurely judging people and potentially closing off great matches for you because of superficial issues. The reality is you might not know who is right for you, and only through trial and error can you actually figure it out. And studies also have found this really interesting thing, which is that you can hack attraction. So, for example, if you talk to a total stranger, someone you've never met, for 30 minutes, then stare into their eyes for 4 minutes, you will end up feeling a deep and lasting attachment to them.
Huh.
Yeah, so in one study where they did this, like an experiment, one set of people participating in the event got married.
Whoa.
Yeah, so you can hack it. So this is kind of an interesting thing, because if you find that you're in really bad dating patterns, you're like, oh God, I keep getting attracted to like the same bad types of people over and over again, you can train yourself out of that by kind of just like trying to view people differently. So if you have a conversation for 30 minutes and then make deep eye contact for 4 minutes, you can kind of hack your brain to reprogram what's attractive to you. And then, of course, there are reasons why some people are just not so great at dating that don't have anything to do with how attractive or unattractive they are to other people. 75% of Americans describe finding a date as difficult. And psychiatrists and therapists and mental health professionals attribute it primarily to 8 different reasons. So the first is that some people are just super defensive, self-protective, and closed off when dating, which makes them not receptive to potential partnerships. People in these situations tend to blame being single on external forces rather than recognizing the role having their defenses up has played in their love life. The second is that some people just have unhealthy attractions, meaning they're attracted to types of people who make less than ideal partners. People in this situation may actively pursue emotionally unavailable partners, then feel devastated when they're rejected by them. And usually this has to do with like an unconscious motivation to seek out relationships that reinforce critical thoughts that somebody has towards themselves and replay negative aspects of their childhoods. The third is just like a fear of intimacy, or the idea that we don't actually want what we say we want. So this is when people push away a potential loving partner because it disrupts the fantasies of love they've built in their head. This also tends to happen when people view someone else as potentially liking them too much, which they interpret as a turnoff. So this would be, for example, I feel like we all kind of know people like this, where they're like, I really want a long-term partner. I really want someone who's just so nice to me. I really want someone who supports me and does all these things. And then someone comes along who is all of those things, and they're like, no, not that one. You know?
Yeah, and you're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And the reason that they give sometimes is like almost baffling.
Yes, and I feel like maybe we've all been this person, or we've known this person.
Yeah, I mean, no judgment, but like sometimes you're like, but this is exactly what you said. Maybe you don't. Maybe it's a different thing.
Right. So this is this idea, that sometimes what we say we want isn't actually what we're acting like we want. Mm-hmm. And then also I thought the thing was interesting too, because it ties back to that idea where like, if someone seems too eager, you'll think that there's something wrong with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is not a problem I have, or you have, because we like the obsessed with us thing.
To a point.
Oh, you don't like too much.
I have had someone who was too much, and I was like, whoa.
Oh, okay, all right. So there is a point.
There is a point where I'm like, oh, hey now.
Yeah. Well, okay, the fourth one is also like just the idea of pickiness. Like when people are extremely picky and set up lists of qualities that people have to even be considered, which aren't like normal qualities, like has to be nice to me, No, like things that are like, must be over this height, must drive only BMW. Right, things like that, yeah. So then you perceive yourself to be settling if someone doesn't check every box. You're like, well, I'm not going to settle. But in reality, it's like, well, you're not settling. You've chosen usually a superficial list of qualities. And these connections, like, you're trying to make them sound really rational, but in reality, like, love and romance is more subconscious and emotional. And closing off the opportunity to build emotional connections with people because of something little, like their height or their job, something like that, will shut down potential successful relationships.
Yeah, for sure.
Not like big things, obviously. You're still allowed to have standards.
Oh, for sure. But yeah, I feel like the height thing is a big one.
The height is major. Or now that I'm in my mid-30s, I find a lot of women my age who date men don't want to date men who are losing their hair.
Interesting.
And I'm like, that is a lot of men. You are really narrowing your dating pool, and also it seems so superficial.
Yeah, I know men who are losing their hair who make it look fucking cool.
Jason Statham's hot as shit.
I know, like,
yeah.
If you if you are losing your hair and you make it look like The Prodigy or like Jack Nicholson, like in the 90s there were so many hot balding men.
Yeah, so it's like these little things where sometimes we're like, well, I don't want to settle, and it's like, okay, like, that's fine. You don't have to date. But if you think that you do want to date and you're coming up with all these things to disqualify people before you even get to know them, that like might be standing in the way of your goal. If your goal is actually to date, you're creating these obstacles, and that's not actually helping you.
Yeah, because what if because people are like complicated and nuanced, and nobody's fucking perfect.
Right,
like,
and
I'm
also,
not perfect. Like, I have things about me that I'm sure are annoying as shit to like, someone who is like a partner to me. Like,
we all have those things, but also it's like when you do these like superficial like pickiness things, it's kind of like the photos on Tinder, like how you can't actually tell how hot someone is from photos. You have to meet them in person and catch their vibe and energy. Mm-hmm. That's like the same thing. Another key factor also, this is the fifth one out of the 8, is people struggling with low self-esteem. And sometimes people just give in to like the inner critical voice in their head, and then they end up doing things that push people away, because they don't have enough confidence. Like they'll struggle to talk to other people or make eye contact or speak up for what they want or they need in a relationship, and it's really sad. The sixth thing too is fear of competition. So perceiving other people to be competition for the affections of your potential partner. So I was kind of struggling to think of like what this would be like, but then I read one example, and it's like, I'm too old for this. Like, I'm too old to be dating like this. And I thought, oh, I've heard lots of people think this way.
I have thought that way.
Right. And it actually is tied to a competition-based thing where you think that younger people are going to be more desirable to you. And then this will make you feel like, well, if I don't get chosen, I'm like a fool, and I don't want to be made a fool of.
Yeah, it's kind of like people who don't try because they're afraid to fail.
Yes,
But
exactly.
it's like, but then you don't succeed either.
Right. And then the next one, this one I know people who are like this too. It's isolation and routine. So as people age especially, they tend to retreat into their comfort zones, becoming more accomplished, yes, and self-sufficient, which is great. But also it kind of creates a bubble around you that makes it harder for you to like emerge from. Other people bring changes to your routine and they bring uncertainty, and sometimes that may seem more stressful than worthwhile to people, which is totally fine if that's a decision you've made. But sometimes people who actually do want to date feel like they created an obstacle through the isolation and routine of the comfort of their own lives. And that can be hard to like get through. And then the last one is rule making. So this is where we make rules about dating, but usually based on our past. So we have these rules, and sometimes people even write them down, and they're rules for what potential suitors must do in our heads. And that means we're just like closing ourselves off from the experience of dating. And actually it becomes a form of game playing that leads to approaching potential relationships with less sincerity and authenticity. When you're like, well, he has to open the door for me, but when I get in the car, or like she has to lean over and unlock the car door for me if like I let them in first. Have you ever heard of that one?
Yeah, I remember seeing that in a movie. Also, there is a book for like, it's like for women called The Rules. And it's shit like that.
Yes, and all these things are so bad because none of that means someone unlocking a door for you doesn't mean they're an evil person who doesn't give a fuck about you.
What if they have arthritis?
Also, it's like maybe the door just isn't that important and you can open your own door, but maybe if you really needed them, they'd be there.
Yeah, like maybe they don't open the door for you, but if you were sick in the hospital, they'd come visit you and take you meals and pick up your mail and make sure your cat got fed.
Right. So it's things like that where you're like, okay, people set up these obstacles to dating and it makes it really hard for them to achieve what they want. If they do want to date, right? Not everybody wants to date. Not everybody wants to be in a relationship. And then in that case, it's like, that's totally fine. You do your thing.
Well, I think like just society, especially now, has made it seem weird for people to not be in relationships. One, because living is so expensive. It's so much easier with a partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, like husband, wife, whoever. Like it's so much easier with a long-term partner.
Yeah.
And also just like, you know, it's so funny that people, they actually say like, a really bad like health predictor is whether you're married or not.
Yes,
married people
true.
are way healthier. And I was like, I wonder why this is to me. And I was like, it's because someone's around when you're choking.
Yes, but also it's just the idea of community on the whole.
Yeah, and also I think because we live in such a capitalist, disconnected society.
Yes.
And, you know, it's like, it's not like it used to be where there'd be like, I mean, maybe actually more now than in recent past, but like, you know, where you have the whole family, maybe 3 generations living under one house. It's like, for example, I live in a different state than my parents. That's not uncommon.
Right.
You know, or living hours away from your family is not uncommon.
So it's like more isolation, which puts more pressure on romantic relationships.
Yeah, or like where people think that I think also too, there's just this like culture of like your romantic relationships or marriage being like, you're everything. They're my soulmate. I tell them everything. They're my best friend.
Right.
And they're also the best lover I've ever had. Where it's like, well, maybe that's too much to put on one person.
Right.
Like maybe what we need is like, we not only need a friend group, we need like society in general to be like, you know, like I'm not going to talk to, you know, a boyfriend about like everything. You know, I have friends too, you know, like it's not going to be like my only person in my life. And I think like you've read stories as of late being like the crisis of like older men who like, without their wives, they have no friends and nothing to do. And like, we're just like, that's so sad.
It is really sad.
Or like we put so much emphasis on, like romantic relationships rather than like camaraderie, joining a group. Or maybe some people just like to be by themselves and who cares?
Right. So that's actually really interesting because this leads us into this next part, which is like the purpose of dating. Like what is the point of it? Like why do people do it? And, you know, I came up with 3 reasons.
Oh, I'd like to hear that.
Okay. So the first one's sex. People really like to fuck.
Yeah. Boning.
As recent as 2001, when we were in high school, 2001, nearly half of the U.S. population thought that sex between unmarried people was morally unacceptable.
What the fuck?
Yeah, we were in high school. Half
And I'm like,
of the US
wait,
population.
Friends was happening during this time.
Right?
Also, side note, I learned what sex was from Seinfeld.
Oh, wow, that's a very 90s sentence.
They were like saying something, and I was like forehead to my head, being like 9 or something, being like, I'm so stupid. Like, of course. I'm like, why did I not put the two together?
Well, now, as of late, only 28% of Americans think that sex between unmarried people is morally unacceptable. But that still felt really high to me because that's like 1 in 4 adults think you just shouldn't have sex outside of marriage.
Yeah,
That's
feel
a lot
like
of people.
It's unrealistic.
It is really unrealistic.
Like, literally, like...
No, I know. So in reality, obviously, our hormones like testosterone and estrogen drive us towards sex. It's quite natural. Obviously, there are people who also experience things like asexuality, which is natural too. But for some people, dating, sex, or some other form of physical intimacy, it can be a motivating force, even if that physical intimacy maybe differs from traditional ideas of sex that we have.
Yeah.
But yeah, so basically one of the big driving things in trying to find a partner is obviously sex, right? So the second one is love. Just love. And for lots of people, the main motivating factor is the idea of love. Like some people, even who are asexual, pursue romantic notions of love and relationships. And obviously we have platonic love too, which is important. But like, Kenna, how do you define love?
Oh my gosh, that's really...
It's a deep question.
Okay, I was reading, I think, like, the Bell Hooks book on love. And in it, there was a really good definition that is basically like when you are invested in the spiritual growth of another person.
Okay, I like that because, okay, this is similar to how I kind of described it.
Because it's like, to me, it is a feeling that is like, it's a hard word in English to describe, to where it's like, you, like, to me, it's like, I want this person to become a butterfly. Like,
Yeah.
I am invested in their well-being, their future, and just like the sparkle of life that is in them. I am interested in their raison d'etre. I'm sorry, I cannot do French, but the raison d'etre.
I didn't even know that was a thing. So you're doing
I think
great
it's like
in my book.
reason for life, reason
Oh.
to live, or like when people have their joie de vivre, like their
Yes.
joy for life.
So this is similar how I described it. I thought that love was like, okay, first of all, it's an intense desire to be near someone as much as possible. True. But also to protect them from harm and just to see them happy and thriving.
Yeah.
You want them to do well.
Yeah, like people who... I honestly think that sometimes, like, that saying is true. Like, if you love someone, you let them be, you let them free.
Yeah, you set them free.
You set them free.
Yes. You let them free out of the cage you're keeping them in under your bed. Let them free. No, we set them with like a butterfly flying away.
But it's like, to me, it's about like it's very like non-puppet master. Like, I want this person of
Yes.
their own free will to be autonomous and fulfilled and living, and that is what brings me joy. It's not my connection to them. It's not my power over them. It is just their little sparkly butterfly essence.
Right, I agree with that. So scientists have struggled for a long time to figure out exactly what love is, but from what they can tell, love comes from the depths of our subconscious mind, which has around 10 times more information than our rational brain. Romantic love was a basic drive that evolved millions of years ago, and scientists speculate that it was in order to get us focus our attention on like a partner and start the mating process to like ensure the species survival or whatever. But that doesn't explain why so many of us are gay, so I don't know about that one, scientists. I thought maybe it was just because we like to make out with each other because it's fun. But actually, I think it's more of a like communal survival instinct because people are stronger together.
I think that we have a desire. Everybody is meaningful in our society. Everyone is meaningful. And everyone has their different parts to play. No matter... I mean, we have this like ableist thing in our society where it's kind of like the Ayn Rand thing.
Right.
Like, might makes right, or, the strong will survive, which is
Right.
not true even in our history. Even like I was listening to this thing about Neanderthals.
Uh-huh.
And they were like, yeah, they, like, people who were old or infirm, they took care of them. They were important parts of the society. They didn't just, like, leave them to die.
Right. And that is the thing. I think that is actually the, like, evolutionary drive of, like, why people care about each other. Because, yeah, in communities, we're stronger.
Well, yeah, I think it's just, like, and I think people are just like, well, this person is a productive member of society. And it's like, yeah, by your way of thinking, like, they're a doctor or a lawyer, what if they're total dicks?
Right.
Like, or I think people also don't realize that every single person brings something, and it might not be something that we in our society even can see. Maybe in the future, like, you know, it's just like, I keep saying this quote, like, Ursula K. Le Guin would be like, people in the past could never imagine not having the right of kings. Like if you lived in feudal society, it'd be really hard to imagine life in like not having a feudal lord.
Right.
Where it's like, I think we see people as difficult and therefore they're not, you know, I think that like love is that feeling that like everyone is valid, acceptable, sparkly. There's this like thing that's not just like getting through life. There's like a joy there.
There's something special, yeah. And what we do know is, like, when we are in love with somebody, everything about the person takes on new meaning in your brain. It does. They become special because it's attached to them and they're special. And you also experience intense energy, mood swings, heightened elation, and sometimes great despair, depending on your encounters with them. And all of it's heightened. And there's also, like, a physical effect. Like, sometimes we even get dry mouth, that feeling of butterflies in your stomach, weak knees, separation anxiety, and a desire for both a physical connection and an emotional connection. We want attention of any kind from them, basically, because they are so special to us, and that makes us feel special by proxy. And in this state, neurotransmitters, which are called monoamines or I can't pronounce the things. Whatever they are, they take over. And it's shit like dopamine, which is a chemical released by our neurons that causes us to feel pleasure, satisfaction, and motivation. Or adrenaline, which causes our hearts to race and makes us excited. And serotonin, which is sometimes called the happy chemical and affects our mood. And in fact, too much serotonin can create adverse effects and make us confused, restless, agitated, increase our heart rate, make us nauseous, make us vomit, give us fever. And that means, yeah, you can literally be lovesick from having too much serotonin over someone. And in other phases of attachment, you can also have certain hormones released in your system, like oxytocin and vasopressin, which promote bonding between adults during physical intimacy. One biological anthropologist, Helen Fisher, conducted a study on 17 new lovers who reported being happily in love for around 7.5 months. Their brains were scanned, and these scans showed unusual activity in the ventral tegmental area, that's what it is, a region of the brain that makes dopamine and sends the stimulant to other areas. So Fisher explained that this part of the brain generates wanting, seeking, craving, energy, focus, motivation, leading her to conclude that people in love are basically like high on natural speed.
Cool.
Yeah. And the main question people ask about this is, how do you get it to stay? How do you get this feeling forever, right? Like, we think about love in this way, like romantic, intense love, and we think it's so fleeting. And, there's this section of the book, Still Life with Woodpecker by Tom Robbins, which I read in high school, which I still remember, called Who Knows How to Make Love Stay. And he says, number 1, tell love you were going to Junior's Deli on Flatbush Avenue in Brooklyn to pick up a cheesecake, and if love stays, it can have half. It will stay. Number 2, tell love you want a memento of it and obtain a lock of its hair. Burn the hair in a dime store incense burner with yin-yang symbols on 3 sides. Face southwest. Talk fast over the burning hair. Remove the ashes of burnt hair and use them to paint a mustache on your face. Find love. Tell it you are someone new. It will stay.
Aww.
And number 3, wake love up in the middle of the night. Tell it the world is on fire. Dash to the bedroom window and pee out of it. Casually return to bed and assure love that everything is going to be all right. Fall asleep. Love will be there in the morning. But the reality is love actually can statistically stick around for a long time. Well, after 1 year, serotonin levels usually return to normal. This is usually followed by an increase in oxytocin, which in addition to affecting bonding also raises immune function. So this is kind of what you were talking about how married people are healthier. We know that when people are in couples like this, they tend to live longer, have fewer strokes, fewer heart attacks, be less depressed, and have high survival rates from major surgeries and cancer. One study Fisher did involved putting 15 people in their 50s and 60s through a brain scanner as well, and these people had been in love after an average of around 21 years of marriage. And what she found was that some of the brain circuits in them, the basic brain pathways for intense romantic love, were still active. So love can't stick around for everyone, but if you find the right person, yeah, it can still create the intense feelings we think of as romantic love for 20 years. And furthermore, researchers also think that love at first sight actually can be real too, which blows my mind. But when I stop to think about it, I think I've actually experienced this. My last partner who passed away, the first time I saw him, he was in the middle of the desert and he was duct taping his boot together. The sole had broken off. And I remember seeing him do it from a distance, and just something about his body language and the way he was doing it, and that was it. I was instantly in love. Before I even talked to him, I saw him. I was just like, I love this man, and I was obsessed. And I remember it physically hurt my chest to think about that memory for like a year later. When I would think about it, I would feel pain, this person that I didn't even know. And then maybe a year later, I met him again, and we fell in love, and we dated for 2 years until his death. And I think about that moment all the time, and I'm like, I don't believe in love at first sight, but I knew the second I saw him, just something happened. And according to psychologist Arthur Aaron's research, body language alone plays around 55% of the role in determining this kind of instant love at first sight, which in reality isn't at first sight. It's usually between 1.5 to 4 minutes in time. But our brain detects body movement subconsciously, and this influences our perceptions of a person. Another 38% is based on a person's voice, and the words actually spoken play in at around 7% of it.
I kind of believe this too. Oh my gosh. I was watching the Pam and Tommy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, gosh.
thing.
I've heard bad things.
Tommy Lee sucks. Just
yeah,
say.
yeah,
but there is a love at first sight scene that is so fucking funny.
Okay, I need to watch it for the comedy factor.
You have to watch it just for the irony.
Yeah.
But Tommy Lee does suck. And this portrays him as sucking very hard.
Oh, that's good at least. They don't gloss over like the huge abuse and asshole-ish.
Well, I've only seen the first episode, but he is like a major ass.
Okay.
Like he just, ooh.
I need to watch it.
Yeah, but I definitely have had that where you're just like, ooh.
Yeah, just something. Just something. Do you want to tell your story?
No.
Okay, we don't have to. But researchers basically think that, like, look, the effects of being in love, they're the same for every person to person on a neurological level. However, the journey for how long it takes some people to get there, that can be different for everyone. Like, sometimes it's instant, just like that. There's like my current boyfriend. I think it took an hour for me to know I liked him, like I said, and maybe a month to know that I loved him. And some people, it can take years and years. Some people meet and are friends for years and develop feelings way later, and they can have just intense love and a connection. And Fisher says that the 3 different brain systems all come into play: your sex drive, those feelings of intense romantic love, and feelings of deep, like long-lasting attachment. We usually think of them as separate phases, but the reality is that they can happen at any time and in different amounts of combinations. So some people you might just have the sexual connection with. Some you might just have like intense romantic love. Some you might just have a long-lasting deep attachment. Some you might have any 2 of those. And some you might have all 3. And that's usually what we think of as being in love.
Yeah, I feel like I've been like in love with people for very brief moments of time. Like meet someone on vacation and you're like have a whirlwind experience. And you're like, that was great. It's very temporal.
Right. You don't necessarily have the long-lasting connection.
Or like, I feel like if you've ever had like a really great day, even if you with like a friend or something, it feels kind of like love, even though it's like platonic love.
Yeah, for sure. And that kind of brings me to the third reason I think people are so interested in love, was just the general idea of partnership.
Yeah, companionship.
Right. So neuroscientist Gabiha Tolikite, says that the reason we date, the reason we have love for each other, is all about survival at the end of the day. So partnership and community increases your odds of survival in general. We need to build bonds and emotional attachments to each other. We want to care for each other. We want to be selfless with each other. And all of that ensures the survival of our species. It's not just child rearing either, because 97% of mammals do not pair up to raise children, but humans do. And pair bonding evolved around 4 million years ago, along with the brain system's idea of romantic love as we think of it, just for this idea that companionship is good. And when we think about this, you know, especially the idea of pair bonding, it comes with this natural desire to like explore the notions of monogamy, right, in general. Lots of people assume monogamy came about as a response to child caring, but evidence shows that people aren't super great at it. Monogamy is easiest to maintain when you remove temptation from your life, for sure, but removing all temptation is pretty hard to do. Most extramarital affairs, for example, happen with close friends, coworkers, or even long-term acquaintances, like we talked about earlier, where you feel nothing for years and then just one day something happens. And lots of people view infidelity as a total deal breaker in relationships, right? Like cheaters are considered abhorrent most of the time. And most people even attribute it to a form of sexual assault, since it means your primary partner is not able to truly consent to the type of relationship that's going on. It removes their ability for full consent from the table in a lot of ways. However, studies show that most people have engaged in infidelity in the past. And researchers show that people expect romantic and sexual exclusivity early on in relationships, even though they usually admit to having thoughts of cheating themselves early on. And as relationships progress, people tend to find that they are less rewarding than they had expected, according to research. And these standards are hard to keep track of because the goalpost moves a lot. Like, what does rewarding even mean? We often hold different standards for our partners than just for ourselves in these relationships, being more tolerant and lenient with ourselves on average than we do with the people we're together with. And this can, of course, lead to jealousy, suspicion, and control issues arising in some relationships. And, of course, this leads some people to opt out and choose ethical non-monogamy instead, where they're with multiple partners and have clear-cut expectations of what's allowed in these instances. These conversations about non-monogamy can lead to great dialogue between partners and more flexibility in relationships, and ultimately create relationships that work for both parties if monogamy isn't actually doing the job for them. And this might be why non-monogamy is on the rise. It's definitely not new, but it's gaining popularity. In July of 2020, the Somerville, Massachusetts City Council voted unanimously to recognize polyamorous domestic partnerships. The city of Cambridge, which is just on the border, recently followed suit. In 2018, 2 men and a woman in a polyamorous relationship were all recognized as the legal parents of their child in Newfoundland, Canada. And the year prior, 3 men in a relationship in Madeline, Colombia were legally married. Ethical non-monogamy can take on lots of forms, right? There are thruples, where 3 people are all in a relationship together. There are open relationships with one partnership, but the understanding that casual sexual encounters outside of it are permissible. There are poly relationships, where you can have multiple relationships happening concurrently with many different people in addition to your primary partnership. And within each one, couples can obviously establish their own boundaries and patterns for what works for them and change things to suit their needs. And today, 23% of adults in the U.S. who are in relationships say their current relationship is non-monogamous.
Huh.
It's a lot of people, right?
Yeah, more than I would think.
Yeah, it's almost 1 in 4. On the monogamy side, though, we still have traditional ideas of things like marriage, obviously. And we kind of talked about this earlier, but once the norm, marriage is actually on the decline in many places around the world, including where we live in the United States. So in 2006, nearly half of the U.S. population thought it was very important for couples with children to be legally married. Now, just 29% of Americans think so. And marriage rates are definitely falling slowly over time. Between 1978 and 1983, the majority of adults in the U.S. were married. But since then, that figure has dropped roughly 15 percentage points. And offsetting that, though, is the number of people who are unmarried but living together. So that's roughly 8% of adults in the U.S. So, Kenna, how many partners have you lived with in your life?
Ooh, 1, 2.
2? I think I've lived with 5.
Let's see, 1... Technically only 2.
Yeah.
However, there was one situation that was like we lived down the hall from each other. In the same
Friend
complex.
style.
Yeah.
But this is like something we touched on earlier, which is that when you're broke and you live somewhere, especially with expensive rent, it just kind of makes sense to move in with your partner. Living with a partner isn't necessarily like a lifelong commitment now. It's more just a practical understanding that if you're around each other a lot anyway, you might as well save on rent.
Yeah.
Right? And it doesn't mean like we're going to get married. It just means our rent will be cheaper as long as we're doing this. And it basically means we're living with people, but we're not necessarily viewing those as like pre-marriage or like working up to marriage or anything like that. And younger generations have a lot less urgency about marriage in general. Like one 20-year-old from an article named Salem Banks said, I just feel like marriage has been historically a way to sell women off and become wives. And now you don't really need to get married unless it's for financial reasons. Other than that, if you're together, then you're together. One 22-year-old named Zenzel Thomas said, our generation is under the illusion that marriage is an institution of love, when it is, in fact, just a business practice. And most American adults do still want to commit to someone someday, and it's 81% to be exact. So it's a lot of people. They're just delaying it longer and longer than previous generations if they're interested in all, because it just doesn't seem that important. So why aren't they getting married? I'm sure you can guess, do you know?
Because it's expensive.
Because it's expensive, yeah. It has a lot to do with financial stability. While marriage rates have declined and divorce rates have risen for everyone across the board, regardless of class, marriage rates are still higher for people with college degrees than without, which correlates to higher income as well. To put it bluntly, the middle class is just more likely to get married and poor people not so much. And rich people are way more likely to get married.
Which is funny to me. Okay, because I'm just like, well, you have more to lose if you get married and get divorced.
I think about that too.
I'm like, as like a middle or lower class person, you don't got a lot to lose.
No, but the affluent in the U.S. are over 2 times as likely as the lower class to get married.
Probably because they can afford like cool weddings, like big balling weddings.
It's like an incentive.
Yeah.
Well, this might not matter so much to the average person, but if you're planning to have children, this kind of info could be important because children thrive in environments that are stable, and married people are statistically more likely to have stable home environments for children than just a cohabitating couple. Children of married parents are likely to go through 0.5 family transitions by the age of 12 compared to 1.4 for parents who are not married but are just living together, so nearly 3 times the instability. And instability can be linked to lower educational attainment, poorer social development, poorer cognitive development, problematic behavior, and what's called a wealth penalty later in adulthood. But obviously having money isn't like a prerequisite for being a good parent. My parents were super broke when I was a kid, and I had a great childhood. I have fond memories of living at my grandma's house with my father and going to the laundromat together and shopping at thrift stores with my family. And children of the wealthy have their own set of issues to contend with, often showing maladjustment in teenage years with issues like binge drinking and hard drug use and cheating at school. But what this could mean is that marriage is just another way that the rich get richer and build generational wealth in the United States that they pass on to their children. However, a major thing to actually consider is this. The common misconception is that getting married is a way to build wealth itself by pooling resources. However, all data shows that the correlation between marriage and money actually works in reverse. The rich aren't rich because they're getting married. The rich can get married because they're rich.
Yeah. And
people with money are more likely on the whole to have stability in their lives. Poor people are just more likely to be stressed out, and that stress can adversely affect relationships. 1/3 of adults with partners report that money is a major source of conflict in their relationship. So if you don't have enough money, odds are you're fighting with your partner more about money. And that stress may be more likely to end your relationship before you reach a point where marriage even comes on the table. In fact, lower class families tend to value marriage as an institution more than upper class families do, even though they're getting married less. They're a lot less likely to get there, though, due to the pressure and burden that being low income has on their lives and relationships. And as it relates to both marriage and child rearing, this actually means that the main factor contributing to a child's overall outcome, more than the legal act of signing a piece of paper in regards to stability, is just access to financial resources. That single motivating factor of money can lead to fewer conflicts in romantic relationships and encourage people to enter marriages, as well as provide a strong foundation for children who thrive in 2-parent homes. And the causation tends to actually flow in that direction rather than the opposite. Studies show that for low-income single moms, the divorce rate is actually way higher than any other peer group, coming in at 64%. For these women, they were financially worse off than if they had never gotten married to begin with. So marriage is a correlation to money and not the contributing factor, despite all these studies saying, children need stability and 2-parent homes are better for them and marriage is better for them than just cohabitation. The reality is that money is what's best for children, and money leads to people being more likely to get married than just cohabitating.
Yeah, it's, isn't it like so weird how giving people money and stuff just makes your life better?
Yeah.
Like, I just think about how many, relationship and familial problems, would be solved by just having the money and the resources, or especially in the States, how many people wouldn't even have to consider getting married, or that wouldn't even be an issue of whether children do better in married or non-married environments if there was just universal free childcare,
right?
Universal health care for children, universal food, universal care, you could, or living, in communal settings where you're just they're over at their friend's house, I don't have to worry about them.
Also adoption, because a primary motivating factor for why mothers in the United States give their children up for adoption if they don't actually want to is that they don't have the money to adequately support the child. And our system, instead of giving them the money directly, gives the foster program the money to support the child.
Yeah. That's so fucked.
I know. It's really sad.
Where it's just how, I was just thinking about the times in my life when I've been the brokest versus now that I have stable income. My life was a wreck because of the money. That, and once I had money, my my mental health, my health in general just got so much better. Like, just, like, I felt more chill. Like, just things in my life, like, got so much better because of that.
Because of the money, yeah. And you also see that this is, like, a way to, like, shame or, like, try to moralize the issue of poverty. It's, like, a lot of people will be like, oh, well, the reason why poor people are poor is because they're not getting married. They're not doing these magical steps in the right order. Like, get married, then have kids, blah, blah, blah. And then, yeah, what, like, we actually find is, like, that doesn't matter. Like, none of that matters. What you actually, just need is to support people so they can make whatever decision is best for their life.
Yeah, so they can be married or not married, or in relationships or not in relationships, or in non-traditional, non-traditional relationships, like...
Be a single-parent household or a two-parent household or a three-parent household or whatever you want to do.
Yeah, that's where it's just, like, if, like, money and resources are the problem. And,
right.
Like, that's, like, the thing with, like, why I feel like we place so much on romantic relationships, because it is, like, intertwined with our financial relationships, because there is no safety net here.
Right.
Like, there is, like people would say there is, but really there's not.
There's not. So all of this kind of brings us to the idea of divorce. Or breakups, if you're not married, big breakups. In 2019, the divorce rate was roughly double of what it was in 1960, but still down from the all-time high in the early 80s.
Yeah. I have never been married, but I feel like I've been through 3 major divorces.
Like, just with your breakups?
Yeah. Mm-hmm, like, where it's, like, lost, like, 1, lost my house, 2, lost my job, 3, like, very, like, divvying up stuff, like, like, or in one case, like, so, like, someone gets the pet, someone gets the house, like,
right, it is, yeah. Even, like, at these lower numbers of divorces, nearly 50% of marriages in the U.S. still do end in divorce. I think it was 41% now, and it used to be 50 is what it was in the 80s. But the odds of getting divorced go up based on the number of marriages you had. Oh, so it's actually your first marriage that is only 41% likely to end in divorce. So the total still is 50 overall.
Gotcha.
So your first marriage is 41% likely to end in divorce. Your second marriage is 60% likely to end in divorce. And your third marriage is 73% likely to end in divorce.
To me, it's like you're just treating getting married like dating.
Right, exactly. And the U.S. has the 6th highest divorce rate in the world under countries like Russia and Belarus. So basically there's a fuck ton of divorcing going on, right? That's 1 divorce in the U.S. every 42 seconds, and most of these divorces happen around the 7-year mark, which we call the 7-year itch, which is at a time when couples tend to be around 30 years old. And in fact, most divorces happen when people are between 25 and 39, which means a lot of these people are just getting married before their prefrontal cortex even finishes developing.
Yeah.
They're young and they're getting married, and then 7 years later, they're just 30 years old when they're going through their divorce. And the top reasons that people report for getting divorced, this is in order. Number 1 is a lack of commitment. That's 73%. Argue too much, infidelity, married too young, unrealistic expectations, lack of equality in the relationship, lack of preparation for marriage, and domestic violence. It's really sad. And one study in the UK found that Facebook alone was responsible for 1/3 of all divorce petitions in the year 2011.
What?
Yeah, just because people started talking to, like, their old, like,
exes.
Their exes and stuff, yeah. And, breaking up is shitty. It hurts. According to one doctor, research has shown that regions of the brain that get activated in response to physical pain also get activated in response to a breakup. Whether we've broken a bone or gotten dumped, many of the same underlying neurological structures are involved. And this translates to conscious experience of being in pain.
Yeah, I definitely went through one really, really bad breakup, like terrible. And I felt like I was gonna die.
Yeah,
like,
you do.
I literally
you feel it.
felt like couldn't get out of bed, like...
Yeah, so if you're going through a breakup and you're ever like, why am I such a baby? You're not a baby. You're literally heartsick. You're literally experiencing a physical pain. And additionally, we also experience, with breakups, chemical withdrawals that are really similar to addictions. And we have actual cravings to be with our ex. We feel abandonment, and we feel a drive to understand the why of the breakup, which leads to endless backtracking, like just thinking what went wrong. And it's usually impossible to pinpoint one thing, which means we just end up stuck back in the relationship in our heads, like reopening the wound over and over again, which delays its ability to heal so we can move on with our lives. So, this idea of it being like addiction, you're addicted to them. And that's why it's so hard to cut yourself off cold turkey. and like why the best thing to do is just delete their number out of your phone and never text them. But it's so hard to do at the beginning of a breakup. Breaking up is also the loss of investment, time and energy, and it's kind of like that sunk cost fallacy, which is where, you know, you've already invested so much into something that rather than walking away, you choose to invest even more because you've come so far. And this leads people to stay in bad relationships longer than they should. And they feel like they've lost time or energy once the relationship finally ends, creating a sense of failure. And then there's logistics, which is like money stuff, you know, if you were living together and now you have to pay 2 separate rents, or household chores, or just even things like running errands. Not to mention the identity crisis that comes along with major breakups. According to research published in Personality and Psychology Bulletin, the more committed a person is in a relationship, the higher the chance of them changing their personality afterwards because it's such a shock to their system. Things like appetite can also be affected by a breakup, since stressful thoughts increase our body's cortisol levels, which divert the blood away from your digestive tract, leaving you with GI troubles and giving you a nauseous feeling at the thought of food. And statistically, men actually have a harder time getting over breakups than women do, which kind of makes all those memes about a man being emotionally unavailable because a girl broke his heart in the 4th grade make a lot more sense.
Wow.
Yeah, so in summary, dating is fucking hard, man. And that's not even taking into account that most women who are currently single and looking to date, 65%, say they've experienced at least one form of harassing behavior, asked about in a survey that was given, like being touched in a way that made them uncomfortable on dates, or having rumors spread about their sexual history. Another thing this doesn't take into account is that 60% of people who have had to come up with escape plans to leave bad dates quickly, or that up to a quarter of all women will encounter sexual assault during a date in their lifetime. And yet we're not deterred. And this made me think of that Gang of Four song, right? Like, is it Gang of Four? It's Brian Ferry. Love is the drug. We need a score. Is that what it is?
So,
or maybe we as a culture just need to get more comfortable with the idea of finding community and meaningful relationships outside of traditional romance and a traditional structure of marriage, building families and finding love with our friends. Maybe it's the era for platonic love to truly rise up and for us to realize fulfillment looks different in every life, and it's up to us to figure out what works for us uniquely.
Hear, hear.
Thanks so much for listening to another episode of Pick Me Up, I'm Scared. If you would like to support us on Patreon, you can find us at patreon.com/pickmeupimscared. For $2 a month, you can get access to bonus features, including episodes and a link where you can leave us voicemails and the ability to send us messages with lovely things like just your thoughts, what's going on in your head, man. And also, if you have any episode suggestions, we do them from time to time. And if you don't want to give us your $2, that's all right. Thanks for sticking around. We'll be here every week.